The time America almost nuked the moon, Project A119. Picture this, it's the 1950s. You're a senior strategist for the US military. The Cold War is in full swing, and your job is to come up with ways to prove that America is the global superpower. You're sitting in a smoke-filled room, brainstorming with your equally sleep-deprived colleagues. Ideas are flying around. A navy of trained dolphins, jetpacks for paratroopers, or even weaponized weather balloons. Then suddenly, one guy, probably named Larry, slams the table and yells, "I've got it! Let's nuke the moon!" The sea. Silence. Everyone stares, and then instead of firing Larry for being insane, the room starts nodding in agreement. Welcome to Brain Waffles. Today we are looking at one of the strangest chapters of Cold War history, Project A119. Project A119 was a proposal during the Cold War era, where US military strategists considered detonating a nuclear bomb on the moon as a show of power against the Soviets. The idea of nuking the moon didn't come out of nowhere. It was the product of Cold War paranoia, one-upmanship, and a desperate need to reclaim lost glory. Let's set the stage. It's 1957, and the Soviet Union has just launched Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite. That shiny metal ball was more than just a scientific achievement. It was a giant "we're better than you" flex aimed directly at the United States. America, embarrassed, terrified, playing catch-up. It didn't help that the Soviets were rumored to be working on their own moon-related stunts. Suddenly, the pressure was on to not just match their achievements, but to utterly blow them, well, the moon, out of the water. Enter Project A119. An Air Force proposal to showcase America's technological and military might in the most dramatic way possible. The idea was to send a nuclear weapon to the moon, detonate it on impact, and create a massive explosion that would be visible from Earth. The plan wasn't just about destruction, it was about making a statement. Imagine the headlines: "America nukes the moon, Soviets tremble." And let's be honest, this wasn't just about intimidation. It was also about putting on a show. After all, Americans love their fireworks. What could be more patriotic than the biggest, boldest firework in human history? Lighting up the night sky from outer space. The Air Force wasn't just thinking strategically, they were dreaming of a lunar 4th of July. But where do you even start with something this insane? The project was handed to physicist Leonard Reifel, who assembled a team of scientists to figure out how to make it happen. Surprisingly, one of those scientists was a 20-something Carl Sagan. Yes, the Carl Sagan. At the time, he wasn't the poetic space evangelist we know today. He was just a smart young guy trying to pay the bills. His job? Calculate how the dust and gas from the explosion would behave in the moon's atmosphere, or lack thereof. Imagine putting "moon nuking expert" on your resume. The Air Force wanted to make sure the explosion would look impressive from Earth. After all, the whole point was to rub it in the Soviets' faces. So they had to carefully consider the size and type of bomb. Oh, and here's the kicker. The moon wasn't even a strategic target. It wasn't like they were trying to take out a Soviet moon base or anything. This was pure theater, a celestial stunt designed to make headlines and send a message. Now, let's get into the technical side. Launching a nuke to the moon sounds straightforward, on paper, but in reality, it's a logistical nightmare. First, you'd need a rocket powerful enough to escape Earth's gravity and carry a payload all the way to the moon. Next, you'd need to ensure the bomb would detonate at just the right moment. Too high, and the explosion wouldn't be visible. Too low, and it might not create the dramatic dust plume they wanted. And let's not forget the whole "what if the rocket veers off course and crashes back on Earth" problem. Even if they managed to pull it off, there were concerns about the aftermath. What if the explosion destabilized the moon's orbit? What if radioactive debris got blown into space and somehow ended up back on Earth? These weren't just hypothetical questions, they were genuine fears. Thankfully, the idea never left the drawing board. By the late 1950s, cooler heads began to prevail. For one, there was growing concern about the environmental and ethical implications of nuking the moon. Sure, it's just a big rock in space, but it's our big rock. The moon plays a crucial role in stabilizing Earth's climate and tides, and scientists couldn't guarantee that blasting it wouldn't have unintended consequences. There was also the small matter of public perception. Even in the Cold War era, when nationalism was at its peak, people probably wouldn't have been thrilled about the US defacing the moon for the sake of a political stunt. Imagine the outrage if the plan had gone wrong and turned into a cosmic embarrassment. Lastly, the space race shifted gears. By 1961, President Kennedy had set the ambitious goal of landing a man on the moon. Blowing it up suddenly seemed counterproductive. If you're going to spend billions of dollars on space exploration, it makes more sense to plant a flag than to create a radioactive crater. While Project A119 never became a reality, it's a fascinating glimpse into the absurd lengths the US was willing to go during the Cold War. It also serves as a reminder that desperation and creativity often go hand in hand, though not always in a good way. And hey, we still beat the Soviets to the moon without blowing it up, so maybe Larry wasn't entirely wrong. He just needed better timing. And that's the bizarre story of the time America almost nuked the moon. If you thought this was wild, wait until you hear about some of the other insane ideas cooked up during the Cold War, like using cats as spies or trying to train pigeons to guide missiles. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Cold War absurdity, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe for more stories about the wacky side of history. Until next time, keep looking up at the moon and be grateful it's still in one piece.